What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. And we are back with our weekly episode on Friday. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about still, even though we've done a couple of videos already about UFC 300. It's now about the aftermath. It's about what's to come. And what's to come is absolutely unbelievably incredible, especially for this month of June. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Another thing that we wanted to do today, in addition to talking about what's on the horizon, we also want to reflect back on some interviews that you may have missed that are truly, truly amazing interviews. And to me, what shows these interviews show what this sport is all about and how you can extract massive motivation and inspiration from all the fighters around the world, because they do the toughest thing you can imagine, and they do it with an extreme amount of confidence and perseverance, and we can all learn from that. So I've got some things queued up that I want to talk about. Justin, tell us a little bit about what's going on with yourself. I know you're in Salt Lake City for a fight. What's happening there?
Yeah, man, Salt Lake City. I'm here with Lars Wittenberg, 2-1 amateur, a guy I've been working with for the last couple of years now, or last year. I will say 2 years. He's looking to get back in the win column. He lost his last fight for Tough Enough. We were in Salt Lake City to open up a can of whoop ass. As you know, not many people know, it's not public yet. I haven't posted on Instagram, but I'm looking to lock in a fight May 24th in beautiful Las Vegas against the Mongol. I can't pronounce his first name. It's like fucking this long, and his last name's this long, so we're just gonna call him the Mongol. That's what he goes by. So yeah, it's gonna be a one UFC crossover. You know, ONE1. He's a one kickboxer from Asia, trains at Team Elevation in Colorado, and then me being a UFC vet training Extreme Couture, should be a good one.
All right, amazing. All right, let's get right into the mix. There's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of things being talked about. Ilia Topuria, featherweight champ, came on Ariel Helwani's show earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday. It was a great interview. Love Ilia. If you haven't checked him out, I'm sure you've seen his fights, but definitely check out his interviews. I love the way he talks with such confidence and commands, I think, the audience and really gets people under his spell, if you will. So I think that's one of the reasons why he's so magnetic and exciting. But he talks about the Holloway Gaethje performance, and he does give him his flowers. He does give Holloway's flowers for the win, but he does say unequivocally that Holloway is next. He said Holloway is next, assuming, and I'm sure this is going to be fine, he puts the BMF belt up on the line to fight Topuria. So that's apparently what seems to be next. And I got my own thoughts. I'm going to share them in a second, but this is so perfect. It's so exciting to me. I want to see this way more than I want to see. People are talking about Holloway going up and fighting Conor for the BMF belt if Conor wins, yada, yada. This is a more interesting fight to me, and I'll tell you why I think so in a second. But first, let me turn over to you. What do you think about the Holloway versus Topuria as a matchup and as a fight that you're excited about?
I think it's a great matchup, and it's, again, we talk about the passing of the torch. You have the old dog in there. When I say old dog, I mean somebody that's been around for a while, not necessarily about his age.
Right.
I believe me and Max are the same age, or very similar in age. You got someone like Ilia Topuria, who's 27 or 28 now. So, hey, man, all I can say is I saw Ilia after, not personally, but I saw him on TV after that devastating knockout of Justin Gaethje, and all I saw was fear in that man's eyes. And I don't blame him after seeing one of the most brutal knockouts you could ever imagine against Justin Gaethje, man. He looked scared. Now, Holloway came out because I heard he wants it for the BMF belt and this and that. Holloway said the best thing he could have ever said. He goes, bro, you have conditions? That's not very, very BMF of you. And I think he's exactly right, because the BMF belt, what it represents is on spot, anywhere, anytime, anyway. Max Holloway going up to lightweight, fighting the bigger guy, being the underdog in the fight. That's, to me, what the BMF represents. It represents, hey, man, I might not be the champ, but I'm a bad motherfucker, and I'll fight anyone at any weight. And Ilia Topuria is the 145-pound champ making stipulations, oh, the belt has to be or I'm not doing it. And when he said, I'm paraphrasing, of course. Yeah. But when Max came back and it's like, brother, that's not very BMF of you. And it's like, and he's right. It's spot on, man. Like, you can't be like, oh, I'm the baddest motherfucker on the earth, but I need this, and that. And it's like, nah, you show up, you fight, and that's who decides who the baddest motherfucker is. And to me, right now, Max Holloway is the baddest motherfucker in the world. Ilia Topuria is great. He's an incredible fighter. I think it'll be an incredible fight. But after that performance by Max Holloway that put on Justin Gaethje from the first bell to the 4.5 or 4 minutes and 59 seconds of the 5th round. He looked incredible. He even got dropped in the 4th round. He says he slipped. UFC has to give Justin Gaethje that stat back, man. Like they're labeling it as a slip. They're saying Max didn't get dropped. I saw it. I replayed it 10,000 times. They're in like a tight clinch area. I think I sent it to you. He throws it overhand right, kind of hits him like in the back of the head, falls to his butt, jumps up. I need jump up quick. Of course, was he knocked out? Absolutely not. But it was a drop. Long story short, I want Max Holloway to fuck up Topuria again. The reason is, dude, you can't call yourself a BMF and then start making stipulations in the fight. I just don't agree with it.
All right, so I want to go back to the point that you made, that you said he looks scared, because I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and it's interesting that you said that as the actual fighter, right? Because I thought, look, man, you catch somebody off guard on camera, they don't even know they're being filmed. He might be in the middle of a conversation. He might have said something. He might maybe be thinking of Justin Gaethje at the moment, worried about it. Like, I don't know what was. Do you really think that was fear in his eyes? I mean, like, you would know better than me, but what do you? Was that really your read?
I mean, it was my initial read, dude, and I'm not just saying that to say it. I'm not essentially a huge Topuria fan. Not a fan. I think he's awesome. I think he's a great fighter. So I have no shade to throw at the guy.
Sure.
You know, being a Volodowski fan, being a Holloway fan, being a Gaethje fan. I mean, dude, when they pan the camera over to him, you know, a lot of times, like a fighter, even if they don't realize the camera's on him, once they do, they react. And I'm telling you, I've been in the arena. You've been in the arena. When they put these cameras on fighters, the fighter knows. They don't. It's a fucking. The camera's fucking 3.5 feet, and the guy's like this, right in your face. You know when the camera's on you, and you know, I just thought he looked scared. I looked at my dad, because me and my dad were watching the fights, and I'm like, Dad, that guy looks scared as hell. And he agreed. He didn't really make any gestures. He just kind of stood there like shocked. I mean, you cue it up, man.
I've
Look
seen
at
it.
It's like cue it up to me.
I'll cue it
And
up.
again, I'm not saying he's afraid. I'm not saying he's afraid of Max Holloway. But what I am saying is he looked afraid. And, you know, I guess you can play both sides and, you know, say he's the champ, he's the best, he just beat Volkanovski. And, you know, Holloway saying like, oh, well, he did something it took me I got three tries to do it and I couldn't do it. You know, and he goes, well, it doesn't in the first round. So there's credit given there. With that being said, man, matchups create fights. And sometimes, and keep in mind, Volkanovski was coming off a big knockout. He's coming off a 5-round war with the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, gets knocked out by him on short notice, steps up to fight this. We even talked going into the fight how we were a little concerned that he didn't take enough time off to let his brain heal, and unfortunately led to the KO at the end.
Okay, so I'm going to show this to you guys. You guys probably have seen this, but we'll watch it one more time and get your thoughts.
I'm him. I'm right here. Max, it was one of the most special performances. There's the El Matador.
All right, there it is. There's the clip of him looking around right after the Holloway win. I mean, and like I said, you know better than me. I just thought it often seems a bit preposterous to me when people are always like jumping to that conclusion. Oh, he doesn't want to fight because he's scared, this and that. And I generally dismiss that notion, but if you felt like that was an authentic reaction, he actually was like, "Whoa, this is going to be a tough fight." That's a very interesting take.
Again, don't take what I said. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to fight Max Holloway. I mean, there's been guys that I go to fight against, like, oh shit, this is going to be a tough fight.
Right.
And, you know, okay, like he has to. He's the champ, but he can't start making stipulations, man. Max Holloway did so much for the featherweight division. You know, he had lost to, you know, I want to see Max Holloway start getting some of his losses back. You know, I want to see him, I don't want to see him fight Volkanovski again, but man, if he got up there and, you know, got to fight Conor for the BMF, if he goes down to 45, you know, I'd love to see him take care of Topuria. Poirier has all the weapons, man. He kicks, he punches, he is the full show here. But man, Max Holloway, after that performance, it's hard to deny him from anything. Anything he wants, he gets now.
100%. Okay, so now I'm just gonna kick out an imaginary storyline of what could happen, and this is why I think he should definitely fight Topuria, not Conor McGregor next. Okay, imagine this: he goes back down, he fights Topuria, and looking as good as he did with that speed and that footwork against Topuria. And Topuria is one of the things I've been listening to analysts talk about Topuria's fighting style. A lot of times he likes to get guys up against the fence, right, corner them, and then unleash for the knockout. And he also obviously has amazing grappling and jiu-jitsu skills, and he probably outclasses Max there. But imagine if Max can stay away, keep his distance, use that footwork, use that speed to his advantage. If he can pull off the victory, imagine this comeback story. Now, he would go back, he would reclaim That 45 belt, what an inspirational story after all he's been through. And then knowing the guy that Max is, I bet you he calls Volk back up for a rematch. I would not be shocked. Imagine if Volk comes back after those 3 losses to Volk, with one of them being very controversial. Most people think it, a lot of people thinking Max won. Imagine if he calls that guy. I know you love Volk, but I'm just like imagining this storyline. He comes back, fights Volk one final time, and he wins and retires. And maybe he goes on and moves up. But like, so those are the stakes to me that are on the line, where this could be Holloway's. Not like he needs a comeback, he's already established, but imagine him getting that victory, getting that final victory after Volk. Boom, he's out, greatest featherweight of all time. No denying it. What do you think of this possibility?
I mean, it's definitely in the works. It's definitely a possibility. I personally don't want to see the Volk fight again, not just because I am pro Volk or anti Holloway, but the thing is, when you're fighting at such a high level, it's hard to beat a guy once. Especially, I mean, their skill set isn't, Holloway might be better. Volk might have just, got lucky a couple times, might say, or maybe Volkanovski was a little bit better. I mean, we're talking about a game of inches here. There's not leaps and bounds between these guys. So to beat a good guy once is tough. To beat him twice, man, most people can't do it. But to beat the guy 3 times, I mean, dude, eventually, if they keep running it back, because they're so equal in skill and it's a split decision, Volk's going to end up losing one of those. And I don't want his reputation tarnished any more than it already has by getting knocked out by Islam. Again, being a big fan. Because, okay, let's say he does. Now, okay, he's been knocked out by Islam at 155. Oh, he finally, after 4 or 5 fights, loses to Max Holloway. Like, it kind of tarnishes his legacy and what he's done for the division. I really hope Volkanovski takes some time off and enjoys the fruits of his labor. What I would like to see Holloway do: go down, fight Topuria, get his belt back, go back up to 155, fight Conor McGregor for the 155 BMF belt, win there, and then, depending on how Dustin and
Islam
play off, like, man, if Dustin beats Islam, there's 2 wins he can get back right in a row.
Oh,
or he goes up and he fights Islam. And I know a lot of people say that's a terrible matchup, but what people aren't talking about is the takedown defense of Max Holloway. Who's taken Max Holloway down and held him down?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
I mean, Conor McGregor took him down once, but it was off a kick. He caught a kick and he tripped. But besides that, who has taken Holloway down and held him? Holloway's known for being a dog on his takedown defense. He's known for getting back to his feet. And again, he reminds me like almost a Jose Aldo. Who's taken Jose Aldo down and kept him down? What, fucking Marab? At the end of his career? Like, that's it. So, you look at a guy like Holloway, he puts on that mask like he did Justin Gaethje, and he can stay off his back. I mean, that is an incredible matchup to me right there in itself.
Wow. Okay, so much to think about. Max Holloway is probably at the pinnacle of the sport right now in terms of how people feel about him, who they want to see him fight. My God. And just a quick comment from Western Mass Climber. Let's pray Dustin beats Islam. We get Poirier Holloway. I mean, I didn't even think about that. That's genius. All right, let's move it along. You did mention Conor McGregor, and that is the next topic in the show. McGregor versus Chandler announced for June 29th. Now, before we get into the fight and the matchup and the details, this is something, Chandler's had a rough time the last few months, especially a lot of people clowning him, saying this fight's never going to happen. What are you doing? You're wasting your career. A lot of people talking smack about him. And whatever people want to say about Michael Chandler, at the end of the day, if you really listen to his interviews, man, he is motivational. He is positive. He is super, whatever you want to say about his personality, he's one of the most exciting fighters ever. And I want to play a little clip from the MMA Hour, because this is the second half of the sport to me. Is one half is the fights and the build up and the week up, but the second half is the aftermath, or hearing the fighters talk about their life, their preparation. All that stuff is what makes the sport. And that's why Ariel Helwani is so integral to the sport. So I want to play this for you, because this really, through things that I'm personally going through in my life, man, it struck a chord with me. And it was such a beautiful sentiment. So let me turn it over to Chandler right here. Wait, I think it is which one? 242. Here we go. 242. And here we go.
And you have a moment of peace with your wife. Did you ever have a moment in all of this where you're lying down, you're just reflecting, and you look to her and say, I don't know if this is ever going to happen. Did you ever doubt for a moment that all of this would be for naught?
Absolutely. You know, there was times. I think overall the general sentiment, you know, because there's so much more reassurances behind the scenes than are front facing to the media, to the fans, insiders, inside information, all that kind of stuff. And it was chaotic. There was a lot of chaos going on, man. I mean, take you back to Conor calling out basically every single person on every single card for a couple months straight there. Justin winning the BMF belt, calling out all these different guys. And Diaz was kind of throwing his name in the mix, and then UFC 300 and the time, or the whole USADA thing up and down, and then the fight date getting pushed back. And obviously, yeah, man, I'm a human being. You can have unwavering faith. You can have great confident expectancy. You can expect great things to happen. You could build yourself up and do the right things for the right thing, the good things and blessings to be bestowed upon you. But it doesn't mean that you can't be so naive or so uneducated throughout life to know that bad things are going to happen. Like doors might get closed, right? So I have my moments, of course. But overall, I stayed in the gym. All I did was try to focus on what I can control, man. When everything is taken away from you from a control standpoint, even though you know you're doing what you need to be doing, even though you know you're making the right decision, even though everyone is criticizing you and pointing the finger at you, I stayed steadfast. I stayed immovable. A little bit of time off was good. You know, I looked at it from that perspective, man. I spent more time with my wife and boys in the last 15 months that I have Hap's entire life and Ace's entire life. My wife and I's entire marriage. We'll be married 10 years this September. My body needed a little bit of time to heal up. There were so many blessings. On the business standpoint, I'm crushing it in business. So there was a lot of blessings in there, and I could count those blessings, even though my flesh, my human, every now and then was like, dang, dude, you're going to look like a big idiot if this thing doesn't happen. And that's the ego talking, and ego is the enemy. And luckily here we are.
Okay. I got to turn it back over to you. Cause to me, when I saw that, I was, you know, I've been dealing with personally different things. I'm not going to talk about them here, but like the bottom line is when I get these little moments in these interviews and I hear something like that, and it relates to something I'm directly dealing with, I just get so much inspiration. And like that idea, once again, and what all you fighters kind of have to constantly do to like a 10x or 100x level than like normal regular folks have to deal with. I feel like those challenges are so big and crazy, and you just have to stay so mentally focused. And hearing him talk about that element of, hey, I'm going to focus on what I can control, and the rest, what am I going to do, and stay steadfast, man, it just resonates so much with me. What do you feel like when you hear this? Are you like, yeah, this is obviously how I think, or does this also give you inspiration as a fellow fighter?
Yeah, I mean, it's talking about hardships in the fight world. I mean, everyone has their own story. And, you know, to hear that fans have been criticizing him like, oh, you just need to let this go. You need to let this go, man. Mike Chandler has done a lot for the sport. And I know I say this a lot about a lot of fighters, but being a fighter, I can genuinely appreciate, you know, I just don't show up on Saturday and watch these guys and not talk about them or think about them, you know, throughout the week. Like, you got guys, again, like Justin Gaethje, who's put his life on the line, putting everything on the line. Now Mike Chandler, who's done the same. You know, if you remember Justin Gaethje versus Mike Chandler, like, what a fucking barn burner. I was actually in LA when I got to watch that fight at a bar. That's one of the greatest fights of all time. You know, Michael Chandler has paid his dues. And as Conor McGregor would say, it's a red panty night. Anytime you're fighting Conor McGregor, it's a red panty night. Michael Chandler has money. He's already fought the best of the best. You know, he needs his payday, and I think he's smart for sitting around. And I can imagine it's frustrating, especially Conor. You know, Conor's a loose cannon, like he's saying, calling out everybody, you know, talking this, 185, this and that, and everything and another thing. Like, Mike Chandler had to stay diligent. He had to stay focused and stay on task. You know, and he sounds like he did the right thing, and everything's coming up now. And like I said, you can criticize him all you want, but this guy's put his life on the line countless times. And I know I sound like a broken record saying that. I talked about Justin that way. But guys, like, I don't think the casual fan really understands how dangerous this sport is. I mean, we're getting punched in the face. We're human punching bags, you know, Sean Strickland liked to say. And I'm glad he waited, and I'm glad it's working out for him.
Amazing. All right. So now let's talk about the fight a little bit. And again, I'm going to talk about a little bit of a extended timeline fantasy. And it sucks because I love Michael Chandler, especially hearing this interview and hearing actually other interviews that he's talked about sort of these struggles and these hardships that he's had to go through, being away from his family for these training camps, not really fully knowing the date, wondering if the fight's going to happen, right? He's been through a lot. But at the end of the day, as just a pure MMA and actually a UFC fan, to be honest, Conor winning this fight would be one of the most exciting things in the sport, even if he can't climb the mountaintop. But what does that mean? It's going to mean he's probably immediately going and get a title shot, whether we like it or not, either at the welterweight division or back to the lightweight division. And even if he can't pull it off, the fact that he might be able to will be beyond exciting. So I do still, as much as I love Mike Chandler and as much as this interview pumped me up, I got to say, man, it would be so cool to see McGregor win. So I want to turn over to you. This matchup is such a dangerous matchup. And obviously we know that Chandler's got the wrestling background, the wrestling pedigree, and he's even saying, hey, I'm not going to be opposed to throwing a takedown here or there, this and that. What do you see in this matchup, given that McGregor is looking pretty sharp in his recent sparring footage?
I mean, he's looking sharp in sparring. That's, we gotta worry about that leg. Is that leg gonna hold up? Can he throw his kicks? That's gonna be a big thing coming in. Is he confident to throw his kicks? Chandler, I know it's a southpaw stance, and McGregor comes out in southpaw stance, but he has nasty, nasty leg kicks. And what happens when he starts kicking out that front leg of Conor? Is he gonna switch his stance? Is he gonna try and grit through it? Now he compromises his front leg. Maybe his back leg's already compromised, or maybe he doesn't have the confidence in it. Now Chandler's wrestling is going to be set up. So there's just so many variables going into this fight, and Conor McGregor hasn't won a fight since it's been 5 or 6 years, I think. And I think Cowboy Cerrone was his last victory, and 2020. So we're going on almost 5 years without a victory. And Chandler, injury free, he's had some wars. He's taken some time off, like he's talking about. I just can't count this dog out. The problem is with the matchup is there's always a narrative, and I like to call it the UFC narrative. The UFC is trying to set up storylines. All right.
Yes.
And whether they want to come out and admit it or not, they want guys to beat certain guys, and they don't want guys to beat certain guys, and they want to propel matchups. They need Conor McGregor to win this fight. They need him to. If he doesn't, his star power, it just keeps getting less and less and less and less. And now he goes out there and loses to Michael Chandler, who lost to Eddie Alvarez, who Conor beat. That's kind of what I think Eddie Alvarez and Mike Chandler have a very similar style. They have that great wrestling background with great striking. And Conor made Eddie a couple years ago. I lost $500 on it. I was like, man, finally he's going to fight a wrestler that didn't even try to wrestle him. So, the UFC narrative is, Mike's going to get his red panty night. But can he pull off and someone's going to say the upset. And again, I think the UFC is going to do everything they can to help Conor McGregor win this fight. And because it just fits their narrative. They can't have the most popular MMA fighter, superstar, UFC superstar of all time losing, 5 years in a row.
By the way, Conor is I just checked the odds. He's at it's close. Minus 122. However they came to that. As I mentioned, I am rooting for Conor in this fight, and I'm hoping there's some truth to that. Oh, wait. Celine says, who has the cooler haircut here? Are you talking about me and Justin, or are you talking about Conor and Chandler? I don't know. Me and Justin will never know. And then she also said, can't wait to see them fighting. So that's going to be super exciting. But yeah, it's finally here. We got to celebrate the fact that it's actually happening, because I was having my doubts. We all heard the rumors of contract negotiation problems and this and that, but I guess they've worked it out. Conor is back. He's fighting Chandler June 29th. Make sure you tune in. And this month of June, oh my God, it's going to be so crazy. All right, let's move it along. So the other big fight announcement that we didn't talk about or barely talked about, Islam versus Dustin. So just to start us off here, I can't remember the fighter that I heard talking about this fight, but this was his assessment of their skill sets. And I wanted to bounce this off of you, see if you agree. So basically he's saying, the sentiment was that Islam is essentially better than Dustin in every area except for one, which is pure boxing, where Dustin has the advantage in pure boxing, also has a power advantage, right, in the striking as well. Justin, first of all, do you agree with that? And second of all, tell us your thoughts about this matchup.
I think it's a great matchup for Islam, man. I don't think Dustin, he had an incredible performance, obviously, to earn this spot. But I just don't think he's going to be enough to beat Islam. I think Islam's just going to do the same thing Habib did. He's going to get on top. He's going to wear him out. And he's going to find a sub probably within 2 rounds, to be honest. I really hope not. I want Dustin to win, man. And I want everybody to understand that I'm rooting for Dustin. When our picks come out, I'm choosing Dustin as the big underdog. I'm pretty confident Islam's going to win, man. But, everyone loves an underdog story. And, man, I've been eating my Dustin Poirier hot sauce and, maybe sending him some good luck. I just don't think he's going to have enough to beat the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world.
Yeah, I will agree with you. And Dustin's a fighter that I always enjoy to watch and really, really love him as a fighter and just as a human being. But I do agree with you that Islam's going to win. I'm a big fan of Islam, and I'm kind of I hate to admit it, but I am kind of rooting. I really like Islam. Between the two, I would be rooting for Islam. But I think it's going to be a great matchup. I'm so thrilled that Dustin's going to get another crack at the title shot. I think it makes sense. Now, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, but the fight was offered to Sarukian after his victory, and he turned it down. They asked him right after the fight, we want to get you on June 1st against Islam. And he said it was too quick of a turnaround, and that's why it went to Dustin almost immediately after. Arman was criticized by some other fighters that he should have taken it. They're like, yo, things move fast in the sport. You never know. You might get overlooked because if there's a big victory, like, would you have done that? Would you have turned it down and waited if you felt, no, you would have gone for it? Okay.
No, you got to go for it. You got to go for it because exactly what he said. This is a fast-moving sport. You know, he might walk out of his house, fall down the stairs, break his ankle, and now he's out for a year. He might get hit by a car. He might get in a car accident. He might get hurt in training. There's so many variables. When you get your shot, that's like a short notice UFC fight. When the UFC calls, you answer. And when they call for a short notice fight, you answer. And it's really not even that short notice. You know, it's still 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away. Like that's plenty of time as long. And now if he's injured from the Oliveira fight, which I don't think he was, you know, then I could see, all right, need to take some time off. But it's a fast-moving sport, and I think that was the wrong move to make.
Man, I hope
he has to fight again. He has to fight somebody else now. And what if he fucking loses? Now he just lost. He lost an opportunity to fight for the belt. When the UFC calls, answer the door.
What he said in his last interview was that assuming Islam beats Dustin on June, then they're going to tee him up immediately without him having to fight somebody else. They're going to tee him up for September. I think he said he'd be ready to go by August. So August, September, October in Abu Dhabi is the plan. But if Dustin wins, then he's in trouble. And he acknowledged that. He's like, if Dustin wins, he's probably going to want a rematch against Islam, or who knows what's going to happen. Then it might be a little bit dicey. But that'd be a bummer. By the way, so Celine responded, and I guess you win the haircut battle. She said, I don't like hair on the head. So there you go. And yeah, there we go. Just your haircut's better than mine, apparently. I just got a haircut today, so that's too bad. All right. Well, Islam versus Dustin, we cannot wait. And yes, we know Islam's probably, actually, let me look up the odds right now. I'm sure Islam is favored, but here, let's see the odds. Just so we know, it is, oh my god, do you think this is crazy? He's a minus 500. Do you think that's accurate?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, what is Dustin? I mean, Dustin has great boxing. There's no question about it. And man, I really think he has a puncher's chance in this fight because I think Islam's wrestling is going to be way too much, and I think his submission game is going to be way too much. And here's the thing: we already know if Islam shoots a double, Dustin's going to jump guillotine, which in turn is going to put Dustin on his back with Islam Makhachev, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, on top of him. And there's not a spot that I think anybody would want to be in the world.
Yeah, he keeps talking about wanting to jump that gilly. Although, what if he finishes him with that? Oh my god, there's just so many exciting options here. Again, if that happens, that would be groundbreaking, crazy. But if Islam wins, that's amazing too because he's defending the belt. He's defending against Arman Sarukian, and it goes on and on. By the way, last thing I want to say about this fight: Ariel Helwani predicted at the beginning of the year that by the end of 2024. Arman Sarukian will be the lightweight champion. So that's a big kind of prediction. I don't know, but if anybody has a really, really solid chance against Islam, I think that Arman's the guy. So anyways, that's that. Let's move it along to okay, here we go. We're going to move it along to question number 4. Will Alex Pereira fight at UFC 301? So just a little backstory. UFC 301, obviously, we just had 300. It's right around the corner, but it's in Brazil. Now, the theory is that he was supposed to fight at 301, obviously, because it's in Brazil, and he's a massive, massive star in the world, but in Brazil, obviously, especially. And he's saying he wants to turn around. I mean, it makes sense. He barely took any damage in the fight. He didn't take any damage. I don't think he barely got hit. So he's ready to go. What do you think the odds are that he actually turns it around? And who do you think he should fight?
Man, I saw him talk about how he was uninjured, how he wants to fight in Brazil. Man, there's just so many guys you could put him up against. Is he going to make his heavyweight debut? Is he going to defend his title? There are so many variables. There's so many things. I don't think they'll have him fight at UFC 301. Now, I don't think that's going to be his choice. I think it's going to be Dana's choice. I mean, because again, we got to talk about the UFC narrative. What do they want him to do next? Do they want to have this? You know, he's a superstar right now. He just went out there and knocked Jamal Hill out in the first round. I mean, he looked incredible. Does the UFC really want to tarnish that by giving, you know, another fighter a chance to knock him off at 301? I don't think so. Do I think Pereira is genuine when he's saying he's willing and wanting to? Absolutely. This guy is a savage. I'm a Jamal Hill fan. Obviously, we both grew up in Michigan on the Michigan circuit. But Alex Pereira, I am a huge fan of him as well. I did not see that fight going that way. He made it look easy. The way he brushed Herb Dean off to get that finishing punch in there, man. This guy is an animal. I would love more than anything to see him at 301. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. But I'm not saying that because I don't think he's selling wolf tickets. I think he's genuine. I think he wants to. He knows he's uninjured, but I don't think the UFC will risk his star power right now being tarnished on a short notice fight.
So the only thing I'm thinking of is if they do want to support him in the other fight, like he just went through a training camp. Now I don't know how that works, but I imagine he's probably in really good shape. But maybe you know better than me. You need recovery time after training camp and after a fight. I don't know, but theoretically, the person coming up to challenge him, and I just checked the date. It's May 4th. I think I said June. I was wrong about that, but it's like 2 weeks away from tomorrow, which is crazy. But imagine, let's say he fights Ankalaev or whoever, they're coming in on a very abbreviated schedule. So maybe that would give Pereira the advantage. Maybe that might be something that would be beneficial for his star power going forward. What do you think?
I think if he gets in there and gets a win, I mean, don't you remember when Kevin Holland fought like 3 times in 3 weeks and everyone was going crazy and he won like 3 times in a short, it wasn't 3 weeks, but it was less than 3 months or something crazy like that. And that's what really got me knowing besides me and Kevin fighting on the same card, but that's what got me excited about him. Like, man, this upcoming guy, he's an anywhere, anytime kind of guy. And I see what Pereira is trying to do by that, and I think it's great. But again, can the UFC suffer a loss? Can the UFC suffer Alex losing? You know, and I don't think they want him to lose right now. I think they like him as the champion. He's gaining fans. He's gaining traction in the division, man. He's on notice. You know, he's talking about wants to be a 3-division champion, like go up to heavyweight. As much as I would like to see Alex fight, as much as Alex probably genuinely wants to fight, I don't think the UFC will do it.
Fair enough. Okay, last thing I'm going to say on this, because you just blew my mind when you brought that up. I didn't even think about that. Kevin Holland rose to stardom because he fought the frequency of his fights. Same with Khamzat Chimaev. Remember, he fought 2 times in 10 days at 2 different weight classes, and he went up, then down, middleweight, then down to welterweight, and that blew him up and to be arguably one of the biggest stars in the UFC. I think he is the biggest star. Well, to me, he is. This could do that for Pereira. So now I'm thinking they got to make this happen if they can get the right opponent that's willing to step up within 2 weeks. My God, let's hope it happens, whether it's at light heavyweight or heavyweight, but hopefully light. I want to see him do it at light heavyweight still. I feel like going up to heavyweight's a tall task. But anyways, all right, now we're going to move on to the next topic. We got 2 topics left. My next topic I didn't tell you about actually, but you know Aljo, and you can speak about this. My title is Aljamain Sterling, or Aljo is a legend. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is, again, amazing interview on the MMA Hour on Monday after his win. And here's the thing: the reason why I wanted to shine a light on Aljo is because for whatever reason, I just don't get it. People still aren't warming up to him. And if you take the time, and maybe it's the old school stuff with the knee and people thought he was faking and this and that, and he wasn't, and he's talked about it many times. I 100% believe him. If you actually listen to his interviews, dude, he's amazing, man. He's really honest. He tells it like it is. He doesn't try and put on an act or do anything like that. He's humble. Dude, he's a champion, man. He's one of the greatest, or if not the greatest bantamweight of all time. And people just hate on him for, I think, the UFC. I don't know. I just don't get it. So anyways, I know you know him. I know you trained with him. Before we talk about him, I'm turning it over to this unbelievable interview where you get to see a little bit of his personality. And I'm hoping more people are going to give him a chance and really see the amazing competitor that we have right now, and not to take him for granted. So here we go.
Americans, we just don't give a shit, I guess. I don't know.
When did you start to feel like, all right, I'm the man, I'm going to dominate this guy? Because you said you were a little, there were some thoughts in the locker room.
Just to cue it up, by the way, and he's talked about this. He's really, really honest. When he was going up and fighting Calvin Kattar, he was legitimately scared and worried and like, yo, this is a tall task. I'm moving up. There's a lot of unknown. So this is him reflecting on that. And it's so cool to hear that, right? Because a lot of times fighters will just be like, yeah, I had it in the bag. I'm going to destroy this guy. He sucks. Like, nah, no, this is not his take. So just listen to this. And this is what makes the sport amazing, that honesty.
I'd be big enough, etc. But clearly that wasn't an issue. And clearly you were very big and strong enough to beat him and dominate him. How early into the fight did you start to feel like, all right, I'm good. This is going to be okay?
I think after the first round, I started to kind of get into that groove. I was like, okay, maybe he's just kind of rusty from his layoff. I was like, don't get cocky. Don't drift off with your focus. You still got to have tunnel vision. Still got to be dialed in. And don't let him get back into the fight. And then I think after that first round, I kind of had the confidence like, oh shit, I actually do belong here. This is where I should have been the entire time. And the speed difference was apparent. The strength felt apparent. The height was non-existent. Like the height difference was non-existent. He had a 1 inch reach advantage over me. That was non-existent. I think I used my reach pretty well, more effectively. I outstruck him on the feet. And I just, like I said, this is a guy I was really scared about, and to go out there and do what I did, I think it shows a lot. And it wasn't just like I eked the win. I dominated from beginning to end. And I get it wasn't the craziest ground and pound, but it takes two to tango. If he's not trying to give a position so he doesn't get finished, what am I supposed to do? I mean, Max Holloway couldn't even put him away for crying out loud. And we saw how that fight was, right? So with that said, I was pretty bummed about it until I went back and I watched it. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised with the performance. And I was actually really proud of what I was able to do.
Okay, I'm going to stop it here. So there's a couple things, too, that I want to mention. He's talked about tearing up in the locker room, which I can't even understand. He was upset with his performance because he felt like he didn't get the kind of like a wow moment. He won and coming away with like a victory against such a tough guy moving up in weight class. I would imagine you'd be ecstatic, but I guess that's the pressure he puts on himself. So he wasn't even happy. I guess after the fact he was. But Justin, let me turn it over to you. Aljo, you've trained with him. Why is it that why do you think people are still so slow to warm up to him and give him his flowers when he seems like a great guy, great champion? His accomplishments speak for themselves. Like, what do you think is the disconnect, or is that disconnect changing now?
Unfortunately for Aljo and I look at Aljamain Sterling like one of those silent leaders in the gym, guy. This is a guy that I've looked up to for years and years. He fought a good friend of mine, Cody Stamen, years ago. He finished Cody. Then he moved to Extreme Couture where me and Cody trained. And dude, we had the same neck surgery. He's a guy that I look to reassure my confidence of how my neck's going to be holding up. 1 year after his neck surgery, he wins the UFC championship. This is a guy that I love to drill with. This is a guy that I love to learn from. Aljamain, again, is our silent leader now. What I think the reason is, fans aren't warming up to him is because of his style. He has a very gritty wrestling style, and he's very grappling heavy. And I just think the casual fan in MMA doesn't really understand that style. They think it's boring. When I tell you what, it's not that it's more boring or less exciting it can be, again, to the casual fan, but it's so exhausting, man. The pace that he has, casual fan doesn't understand how much energy that takes and how much strength that takes to hold guys like Calvin Kattar down and deliver damage. I love Aljamain Sterling. I love him as a teammate. He's a guy that I know that I can always look to for advice, in the gym. And, I'm glad he got in there, and I'm glad he got the job done. And, it's just the casual fan, man. It's like, I can understand people want to see big knockouts. People want to see big finishes, but this is a guy that's so good at what he's good at. Nobody can stop him. Unfortunately, Sean O'Malley, was able to hit him with that one shot. But besides that, he's giving people fits. He's beaten Peter Yan, beat Peter Yan after the illegal knee, man. Like, Peter Yan is a freaking animal, dude. He's beaten, incredible fighter after incredible fighter. I wish guys would give him a little bit more kudos per se than they do. But I just think they just don't like his style because it's boring. And personally, I like it. It wins him fights, and that puts puts food on the table for him. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it too. And it's just such a weird thing to think about. It's like you're out there, your life is on the line. Like, you're literally could die. And you have to think of, like, that's the part that always gets me. I'm just like, hey, it's an athletic event and your life is on the line. You need to win and you need to stay safe. and then he's out there feeling bad after getting the victory up a weight class just because he in his mind, he doesn't think he was entertaining enough. Like, that's so crazy to me. But I guess that's the pressure that the fans put on the fighters and everything. But anyways, I just encourage people to go and listen to this interview in its entirety and see if you have a different perspective on Aljo. And maybe you still might not be the biggest fan of his fight style. Yeah, I mean, I myself, like, I train Muay Thai, I love Muay Thai. I love to see crisp, amazing striking. And you know, it is what it is, but he's a dominant champion, and dominance and brilliance in the sport should be recognized. So that's all I want to talk about. Last thing, we haven't still talked about Kayla Harrison. And again, I'm going to go back to one of her interviews. So I know I'm referencing a lot of interviews from the MMA Hour, but this is, again, the part of the sport that is so incredible that some people often miss. And I just want to shine a spotlight on her before we conclude for today. So here we go. This is again from the MMA Hour, showing that positivity, that amazing spirit. And people don't even realize the vulnerability that she shows in this interview. She didn't even know if she was going to make, she had no idea if she was going to make weight or not. I mean, imagine that, going in UFC 300, UFC debut, not really knowing how it's going to, I mean, I just can't even imagine that. So anyways, I'm going to let Kayla play, and then we're going to react, and we're going to call it a day. Here we go.
Was there any point where you thought this was too difficult, insurmountable, that this hill was too hard to climb, the 135, that you had bitten off more than you could chew? Was there any point where you thought you were broken?
I mean, the entire camp.
Wow.
I was scared, not of the fight, of the weight. Like, I was scared. You know, I haven't weighed 135 pounds since I was 16 years old. And on the test cut, I got down to 140. And, you know, I walked away from millions of dollars of, like, pretty much guaranteed money to gamble on this, you know, like, to take a chance. I got real quiet. I got real still. I prayed, and I felt like this is where God was calling me to go. And this was my dream. And this is why I started MMA in the first place. And so, like, let's go, let's do it. But I was all in. Like, I didn't know if I was going to make weight. I can't believe I made weight.
When did you make weight?
Friday morning. I got down to 137 Thursday night.
Wow.
And then I ate and drank a little bit. I drank more than I was supposed to, because I probably would have floated. But I was like, oh, I really want to sleep, so I'll drink a little bit. And then I woke up and I was still a pound over. So the last pound was pretty hard. The last pound was the hardest part, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. It's just like, this is insane to me. Going in, not knowing if you're going to make the weight, and then everything is blown going into, you know what I mean? I can't even imagine that. And she just persevered through it. And she says later in the interview that she was looking so bad that some of her coaches, who never ever show her like any sympathy or concern, were worried about her. So, I mean, it's just, and then she came in. I mean, that was a massive weight cut. It must have depleted her so much, and she was so dominant. Now, granted, Holly Holm, you know, entered the grappling realm, which I think probably in retrospect was a big mistake, and maybe she probably realized that. So she kind of gave her a little layup in a way. But I mean, Justin, what are your thoughts on this massive weight cut? She's fighting at way heavier weights in the past. She takes a gamble. I mean, talk about that. Yeah, what does that mean to you as a fighter, like, hearing this story?
Man, I love it, to be honest. And, you know, when she talks about passing up millions of dollars, she's not lying. You know, she was winning $1 million at least. And people are talking about winning the $1 million at the end of the tournament. She's getting paid six figures for every fight in the season, every fight in the playoff, and then just $1 million bonus at the end, guys. So she's making literally millions of dollars. You know, she transfers over. You know, she wants to challenge herself. She won her judo championships at 170. She won her PFL championships at 155. She talks about how she never made 135 since she was 16 years old. Now, I thought she did an awesome job. I thought she looked incredible. I don't understand why Holly Holm, being such a experienced fighter in the UFC, experienced fighter in the UFC that tried to get in some grappling exchanges, that just really doesn't make sense to me. With that being said, everything is great. Kayla did great. She looked great. She talked about the weight cut, though, and that was my concern. How many more times can she make weight? Is she going to balloon up to, because they talked like she was 160 pounds the next day. So how many times is she going to mentally be able to make weight? So let's say, man, say she comes back, she wins the UFC championship. You know, here's my UFC narrative. This is what I think the UFC wants. I think she's going to get an immediate title shot.
Yes.
I think that's going to draw Amanda Nunes back. The UFC wants Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison, PFL champ versus UFC. They want Amanda to go in there and start her to show that UFC is the best brand in the world. And, you know, that's 3 fights. I mean, she talks about how hard the weight cut is. Weight cuts don't get easier. Actually, I think the first time, the second time might be the easiest because you're mentally motivated to make it. You know what I mean? You're like, all right, hey, I've never done this before. It's a challenge. You know, we got to make it. We got to make it. But making it over and over and over, I mean, she's going to have to make it a minimal 2 to 3 more times in her career. Can she do it? And that's really going to be, I mean, you talked about the mental break her coach is saying. I mean, when your coach is telling you that you are like, wow, like this is concerning, that's concerning. And you know, how many, again, she did good. She looked great. I was so impressed. I can't believe what she went in there and did to Holly Holm. Like, I shouldn't say I can't believe it, but it's not really what I thought it was going to go. But again, she has to make weight 2 or 3 more times minimal to become the UFC champion. Can she do it? Time will tell.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm hoping she does, and I hope she pulls it off. I hope she makes history. I hope Amanda Nunes does come back. And I just love Kayla Harrison so much. I want to see her win. I want to see her go for that unbelievable resume and record and finish the sport strong. So that's it. We're going to finish off with a couple comments really quickly. Torin Brown, I think newer to the show. He said Khabib was boring. I see nobody hating on him. GSP, well, quote unquote boring, meaning like a grappling heavy game. They should give Sterling some leeway. I agree. Western Mass Climber says, thoughts of allowing UFC knees to the head of ground opponents. I've heard a lot of people talk about this lately. Justin, let's finish it off with, what do you think? Do you think they should be, should it be allowed, knees to the head?
Yeah, I think it should be allowed, man. We're talking about the ultimate form of combat, hand-to-hand combat. I don't really understand why, and especially with the 12-6 elbows. That's so old school and outdated. From my understanding, what I was always told, and you know, the reason you can't do a 12-6 elbow is because guys like back in the 90s that were doing karate could break cement blocks by doing 12-6 elbows, and they was like, oh well, we want to make those illegal, so we're not having people's skull crushed in there, and I think they need to get rid of that rule as well. I think that, you know, knees on the ground. When I fought in Indiana against a guy named Johnny Hughes, man, we were able to knee each other in the head when we were on the ground, and it just made it that much more exciting. Rising, you can soccer kick in the head, you can knee him in the head, but it's weird you can't throw elbows. I think there shouldn't be growing strikes, there shouldn't be back of the head strikes, and everything else I think should be legal.
All right. Boom. There it is. Friday show. Amazing. Thank you guys so much for new people that are here today and that are joining us on our show that is now getting some momentum. And man, we're having so much fun with this. Celine, Western Mass Climber, you guys have been with us since the get-go, since the jump, and we really, really appreciate it. As I mentioned, we're having so much fun. And yeah, we got more to come. We'll be back on Monday, 1:30 p.m. PST. Make sure to join us. Thank you guys so much. Give us a like, give us a subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you, Western Mass Climber. Take it easy.
See you guys.